Welcome to this episode of the Holly Hughes Podcast. Today, I'm very excited to be speaking with Monica Macansantos, who is the author of Returning to My Father's Kitchen and Love and Other Rituals. Yes, this book hit so many of my issues that I kind of feel like, I am an intuitive healer as well, and I have like my own self-help book and all of that. But there's something about your stories that are so antithetical to my relationship with my father, right? That all my daddy issues, that you have so much love. You have all
Yeah.
these beautiful, I'm going to use the word savory stories of love in about a father and his daughter that it was kind of healing to read.
I'm so glad that you felt that, Holly. My father had a complicated relationship with his father, and I mentioned that in the book. I write about it. His father was abusive, but art and writing enabled him to process that relationship and to find love for his father despite the abuse and despite the hurt. So when his father died, like he still had love for his father. And I think that, I guess it's like dangerous to say that you have to forgive your parents for abusing you. That's not something I agree with. But on the other hand, you can process this difficult relationship
Mm,
in a way that it doesn't poison your relationships with your children. It doesn't recycle generational trauma. So, in one of the essays in this book, A Shared Stillness, it's about like my grandparents, my father's parents being the tango champions of their hometown in the Philippines. And it's about like them finding joy amidst the hurt and how my father was able to see that because he was an artist, he was a writer. And that's why I believe in the power of art and writing to, well, rescue our sense of hope in the
mm.
world that feels so bleak.
It's so crazy right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I think what I also liked about that story is that you also learned to tango.
Yeah.
Ah, how was that for you? Because I talk about this with another guest of mine. Her name is Jamie Rose. She also studies tango and is
Mhm.
an amazing dancer. But there is a surrender and trust with your partnership in that
Yes.
dance that you are leaning in and
Mhm.
being a really good guide is applying, I call it pressure on your back and
Yeah.
and making you move. Did you always know the history of the trouble between your dad and his parents, or was that something you
Yeah.
only learned later?
Well, I learned about it when I was a kid. Like, my father was an open book. He didn't believe in keeping secrets. And this is not very common among Filipino parents and Filipino fathers. Like, Filipinos are tend to be more reserved when it comes to like their like personal troubles, but not my father. He didn't believe in that. So
Well,
I
he was a poet, right? He
Yeah,
was a
oh yeah.
poet.
And
Yeah,
like
yeah.
nonetheless, like I know a lot of children of writers who didn't like have the same relationship they had with my father. Like their parents were open and frank on the page, but they weren't like open and frank with their kids. So in that sense, my
I
father was
think I identify with that just a little. Some
oh
things
yeah.
I want to shelter, right, my
Oh
own
yeah.
daughter from my past. I'm like, you don't really need to know
Oh
that, right?
yeah.
But it's there on the page whenever you're ready to explore that way. But I don't need to hoist that on you.
Oh
Sometimes it's
yeah.
like I go that way. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and like I'm sure my father chose not to share certain things with me. Like we all choose what to share and what not to share, but he shared with me like I think important like aspects of his story, his difficult relationship with his father, and he was from the moment I learned that my grandparents were the tango champions of Zamboanga, like I knew that my father was like very proud of them. Like he saw that as like one of their shining achievements. And I think it's also because he saw that he understood the reason why they stayed together despite the
Mm.
abuse from my grandfather. And not that like I approve of people like
Yeah.
staying with their abusive partners, but like he came to an understanding of the relationship and he saw the joy in it. And I didn't understand why they stayed together or until I learned to tango myself in New Zealand. Like that gave me another opening into a relationship that I knew about when I was since I was a kid, but which I didn't quite understand. Because like when
Yeah.
I learned to tango in New Zealand, I was getting over this weird breakup. Like I was
Mm.
healing my heart, and the person who taught gave me my first tango lesson happened to be that person who broke my heart. So
No.
it was very strange. But
No.
then I liked the dance. And then after we broke up, I was like, that's it? Is that the final tango lesson I'll ever take? So I was intrigued and I was taking other dance lessons like in Lindy. And I
Okay.
actually enjoyed Lindy a lot. It's just that they stopped giving the class at the university where I was doing my PhD. So like I think that if they continued that class, I would have gone on the Lindy route
That's
instead.
very different movement. Like the Lindy
I
to tango, your body is totally different.
that's
The rhythms are totally
yeah,
different. That's amazing.
that's true. On the other hand, the guy who was teaching the Lindy class told me that Lindy is the North American sister of tango. I
Okay, we'll just let them have that. Like
Yeah,
we
okay,
don't need
yeah.
to like
Yeah.
we'll just go there. I'm trying to think now, how can I bridge all of that dancing with all the food, right? Like in your stories.
I mentioned in my essay collection, I learned how to cook when I was living abroad because like in the Philippines, eating out is relatively inexpensive and they have what you would call they're like roadside eateries where you can get like a lunch for cheap. So and like whenever I went home, like I was living away from home even in the Philippines, but when I'd go home for the weekend, like I'd go home like probably every month from work and my dad would cook for me, so, like, I just didn't care about cooking, but when you mentioned, like, sensory memories, I think about just sitting at my father's kitchen, at his kitchen table, watching him cook, and sometimes, like, he'll ask me to help, like, peel a carrot or stuff and stuff, and but sometimes he would just ask me to sit there and accompany him because he'd feel lonely if he was just cooking alone. And I understand why he didn't want to ask me for help because now that I'm a cook myself, like I'm very controlling about the way like carrots are julienned or like I can't have somebody else do like messing things up. Like I it just has to be me in control. So and I think that's one of the it's one of the reasons why I ended up like as a cook abroad because there'd be Filipino restaurants abroad and some of them wouldn't be very good. So I was in Austin, Texas in the early 2010s for my MFA and there were like I guess two Filipino restaurants. I went to one of them. It was not good. And then I think there was a new Filipino restaurant that opened up after I left, and it was good, but I was gone, so but anyway, like, I wanted to make Filipino food the way my father made it for me.
So I had to look up this fruit when I was reading your work
Mhm.
because I know I'm kind of manic in general as a creative person. Like I have those moments where I'm so creative or I'm so in the flow and everything else goes away. And then there's times like, oh, I have life, I have all these bills I have to do. But I really love learning and experiencing other people and cultures. And I think you're a similar person because you have lived everywhere on the planet. But you talk about the calamandi. Do I say that
Calamansi.
right? Calamansi. Yeah. And the seeds. And so, like, how would you describe this necessary ingredient for people who maybe have never tried it?
Oh, so a lot of Filipinos actually don't use calamansi in their
Really?
adobo. A lot of them use white vinegar because it's just easier. You
Mm.
just fill your teaspoon with vinegar and then put in in the dish. But and it's if you're lazy, just use vinegar. But calamansi just makes it special because it's a citrus fruit. It's tiny. It's like that big, and it looks like a lemon, but it's rounder, and it's flavor is more tart and it's more earthy,
Mm.
it's more rounded. So I write in that essay in the book about how my father told me, "Oh, in the States, you'll probably have to use lemons," and it's not the same, but it'll do. And
I would like everyone who's not being able to watch this video, if you could see her expression right now as she is explaining her father's utter disdain for the lemon. It's like a total disappointment of, oh,
it's a
those
lemon.
Americans, it's a lemon.
What can you do? You have to
It's good
turn
on
it.
fish and in a drink,
Yeah. Oh,
whatever.
yeah. But calamansi, like, I think in the Philippines, they're making calamansi margaritas now.
Ooh,
They're
that,
they're really good.
there you go.
Yeah, but anyway, back to the calamansi fruit, like, it's mainly available it grows in Southeast Asia, and I think that, like, its earthiness brings you back home, it brings you back,
Hmm.
like, to the ground from which it comes from, like, it's not well, it is, like, produced in industrial quantities in the Philippines, but it doesn't feel like an engineered fruit. It's
Yeah, I get
yeah.
that. I get that. Oh, totally. So let's talk about home for you because you travel and you go places and you have gotten your education all over the planet, right? In the States and New Zealand, but you are Filipino. You are from the Philippines, and your father is an award winning poet. Did you leave the Philippines because of the, how should I put it, the disappointing relationship that he had with the literary community? Did he tell you go somewhere else, or was there just opportunities for you?
I think it was both because, well, I spent my early childhood in the States. My mom was a Fulbright scholar in Delaware. That's how she earned her PhD in math. And we returned home after she finished her PhD. And I don't know how to explain it, but I guess Americans take it for granted, like the expansiveness of the United States and how there's this mentality that, like, if you want to get something, all you have to do is go out and get it. And because the world is big, because the US is huge, compared to that, the Philippines is a small country and you will feel the limits of its borders
Yeah.
pressing on you when you live in the Philippines. And I mean,
I love that. I haven't ever thought
yeah.
about that. Like America is ginormous.
Mhm.
I have not thought about borders as limits,
And,
but I
like,
like that.
I've talked to Englishmen who've said the same thing, and New
Mm,
Zealanders feel that, like, the reason why they left their countries and explored the States a little bit before going home to, like, New Zealand or England is that they just felt a little limited, and, like, you can have a large life in the Philippines, but when I was a kid, like, I wanted to expand my horizons a bit and to see the States again and to experience the largeness and the opportunities of the offered by the US, so I thought of doing my MFA in the States. But apart from that, like, I feel that if conditions in the literary community were more favorable for my father and I may have gotten comfortable and I may have stayed in the Philippines. I may have gone to grad school in the Philippines, which would have been all right. I know a lot of, like, amazing writers who have done, like, their graduate studies in the Philippines and never really left or leave once in a while, but not for prolonged periods. But so it's, I guess, because the conditions were not ideal. I mentioned this in the book. There's a lot of nepotism in the literary community in the Philippines. And it's not like something that's unique to Filipino culture because, like, I have heard similar stories about, like, literary communities in smaller countries like New Zealand. I heard from friends who are writers in New Zealand can be like that too, but conditions were particularly toxic in the Philippines, and I wonder if it has something to do with our colonial experience and this sense of having to have a hierarchy and having to have a leader whom you suck up to and to whom you pee through your entire career. Like, I hear, like, so, similar stories about Japanese society, how, like, you have your patron and you have to be loyal to that patron, and then if your patron, like, I mean, like, experiences some troubles, I mean, if shit hits the fan for that guy, then it's over for you too. It's similar in the Philippines, and I didn't like it.
I think it was like that in Italy back in the day too, or any place, right?
Yeah.
Because us artists don't get to make our own money, right? Without the patron, without the whatever. I think for me, like there's two things that's happening in my head as I'm listening to you. It's like I grew up in a pretty small town,
Hmm.
right? And for me, I imagine those borders were the same where most of us
Hmm.
talked about leaving. And a lot of people actually moved back. And I find that fascinating. Some of them have
Hmm.
started listening to the podcast, and I get messages from them saying it's so cool to have known you and see what you've become. As if I'm so far away. I'm not that far, I'm a couple states away. But I find those of us who feel places might trap us,
Yeah.
that we look for other places to build and bridge community. So I think what I really like about what I've learned about you is that you're like, I have a globe. There is a
Yeah.
globe, and I'm going to apply and I'm going to go there. And then
Yeah.
I'm going to find more community, and it's I don't know that it's surprising that you do, or do people call you brave? That you're like, oh my God, there she goes. Now she's in
Yeah.
New
Like,
Zealand, and there she goes to Texas, and where's she going? Oh, now she's in Georgia, of
yeah.
course, obviously.
Yeah, and
So
like before this, I was in Las Vegas for a year. So
what
people
leads
told
you? So you apply. Do you like research where to apply? What brings you places? I'm so curious,
this
right?
is
Like everyone knows I'm obsessed with Korea, right? But like what started that? I watched a K
mhm.
drama during lockdown and I just have never left. Like my brain, there's some part of my heart that's there. I find it fascinating. So what makes you, if I was a student, I would probably try to find a way to be there for a semester, to be able to like absorb it
Yeah.
all.
Yeah,
We're
before
talking
my
about
solo
different
leave.
languages, different accents, different cultures, and you're beep bopping all through all of them.
I, except for Europe. It's like,
They're a little slow
yeah.
on the upkeep, okay? We can't all be like
Yeah.
us here in the South. But what made you throw the dart and land?
I don't know. It's just that, as you have mentioned, it's hard to come by these opportunities, like these writerly opportunities in a single place. And what happens with me is that, like, I get tired of where I am. Like when I was applying to MFA programs in the States, I had a teaching job in the Philippines, and it was a good job. Like I enjoyed teaching, but there weren't that many opportunities for advancement. Like they told us like you can take your master's degree but also while teaching. And then we'd have to commute to Manila, and then I'd have to be on buses twice a week while teaching like a 4-4 load. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Apart from that, like I was also ready to take the leap. And why I think I'm reckless. I just look for the like how cushy the opportunity is more than where it is. So with Texas, like this MFA program that took me in, like the Michener Center, it had the best funding package of all the MFA programs I'd looked at. And apart from that, like it was a little safe because I have relatives in Houston, so they're like a little close. And apart from that, like I just don't think I'm not. So when
Wait, that is the quote of the day. I'm a writer, but I just don't. I just
yeah,
like nah.
I don't think about these things like I
But
should.
that's the beauty.
I mean,
No,
like
but I think that's an adventurer, though. Don't you think that you
that's
must
true. Like
have some
I
adventurer's heart besides being sentimental, which I think you are. And I
yeah.
think you actually have quite an amazing talent. In this collection of essays, you really do go from all those words that I've read other people describe your work as, like that hauntingness, that
Mhm.
eeriness, right? Like those, I could tell that they're conscious choices,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
But they're very unconscious to read. Meaning, I know you put in the work, but I don't feel the work. I just get to enjoy it.
I'm glad you feel that about my work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Like
And then your stories like switch up, right? Then you go to the psycho like landlady and a few, which is one of my favorites. I don't know why people don't talk about this one more, But I think that also comes to like part of your personality, right? We're not authors, we're not like one thing. We have those moody things, we have the
Mhm.
missing, we have curiosity. I think I'm strangely sentimental about the smallest of things. Every time I'm reading your work, because I reread it, because that's who I am, I have my grandma's chopping bowl. Like it's this wood bowl, it's beat to shit.
Mhm.
Honestly, it's like I would hold it up, but I'm not getting up. So it's this wood, and she had a single blade that she chopped. Like she lived in a Brooklyn
Mhm.
apartment. Her kitchen was a stove and a sink, and she put a cutting board over the stove. Like there's no other space to do it, right?
Mhm.
And whatever. And she would cook for like 12 people in a space that was 3 feet by 2 feet, right?
Mhm.
All of these. But when she passed, I took her chopping bowl, I took an oven mitt, and I took that blade. And I have them in the drawer in my kitchen. And every now
Oh.
and again, when I'm cooking, I pull it out and I'm like with my grandma, right? And like to me, super sentimental.
Mhm.
So like I connect to my own story reading yours, even though our stories are different.
Yeah, and like I can connect to that story so hard, and I think it's also one of the reasons why, despite all my travels, I remain very much tethered to my homeland and my hometown. So I think it's one of the reasons why I like cooking. It reminds me of my father. Like I told you a while ago that I hate cooking, but I like it. No, don't listen to me. But anyway, and apart from that, like with Tango, like, going back to Tango, like, I couldn't let go of that lesson. Like, I had to learn Tango because it connected me not just to a future in which I could find other partners and other ways of trusting people, and that would include lovers and friends, but it also connected me back to the past with my grandparents and, like, their, like, resilience and their ability to find joy in very difficult situations. Like they also lived through the Philippine American War and like World War II, and they still continued dancing despite all the traumas they went through. So I feel that like our efforts to remain connected with, in your case, your grandmother, mother, in my case, like my family on both sides, like my father and my mother, gives us grounding.
Mm.
And it like in my case, even if I travel a lot, I I still feel that like I'm anchored onto the ground, and that enables me to to be connected to my homeland, but also feel that like Georgia can be home even just for 3 months. I can possibly write a story about this place, or Las Vegas can be home. Instead of like me being like this feather floating around and not having any anchoring, I'm still like part of this earth, this world.
Is there a dish you cook, like the first meal in every place? Do you do anything like that?
I wish I did that in Las
Oh,
Vegas because
now okay.
I did that
What'd you
because like
cook?
yeah, there was a seafood city, and which is like a Filipino chain supermarket. It's just that like Filipino ingredients were much more available in Las Vegas. So like here, there's an Asian market. It's not that close to where I live, so I haven't ventured to the Asian market yet.
They're all judging you. They're all judging you. They're like,
Yeah,
"How could she not be
sorry.
here yet?"
Sorry, it's just a jet lag, man. That's a beast. Like the and yeah, the South is different. It's very different, especially like
How
where
are
I
you
am.
experiencing? So you've been in Texas and now you're in Georgia. Very different.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Texas is just what I mean, it's the South. It's South adjacent, I guess. Texas is Texas. Georgia is the South. Well, yeah. Well, this where I am, Columbus, it's just like Carson McCullers' birthplace. And I have the honor of living in her childhood home, which was a dream. Like sometimes I wonder if this house is haunted. Like me.
I think it probably is. There's got to be. I don't know. Georgia's a tough state for me to. I was just down there touring a college actually with my child, and
Mhm.
there is something about the state of Georgia again because I can see dead people, and when I cross that border, I'm telling you, energetically, it is heavy for me. It is
Yeah, like it felt different.
trippy. It's a lot. There's a lot going on there.
Is it kind of like Louisiana?
Different vibe because For me, although I haven't been to like New Orleans in a
Mhm.
long time, I wasn't quite as in tune or in control of what I see and hear as much as I guess that's the best way to put it. Like I can tell things to leave me alone. But what happens is when I'm around, I guess the best way to call it is a ghost. And maybe we could talk about like how you define ghosts and apparitions because like you play with that a bit, right, in your
Yeah.
writing. But I think, like, for me, I get this wicked headache and I get super dizzy and it feels like I'm not in my body. So it's if you ever had a head rush when you stand up too quick and you're like dizzy. So I feel like that when there's dead things around.
I
And in Georgia, there's a lot of slaves. There's a lot of dead slaves there, right? And then in New Orleans, there is as well, but the Creole culture
Mhm.
and their belief system and all of their, I don't want to be disrespectful, but I'm going to say hoodoo voodoo,
Mhm.
right? They have their own way of doing things. And basically, when I'm in that space, I just ask for protection and not to connect to it, which is a different vibe for
Mm.
me than seeing like a bunch of dead people.
Yeah, dead people with unsettled or unresolved business.
I don't, oh, see, like you add, most people add, like for me, I don't know. It's not often like that.
Well, Filipinos, I can't make a blanket statement because I know a lot of Filipinos who do not believe in ghosts, but it's a culture that encourages like belief in the other
Mm,
world, but like, and a lot of people in the Philippines believe in ghosts. Yeah, and I think that, well, thinking about where I am right now, Georgia, like, there's a lot of hurt in the history. There's a lot, well, there in the case of Georgia, there's enslavement and there's like a lot of inequality
mm,
that like persists to this day. And in the case of the Philippines, like we went through several world wars, we had several colonizers, we had the Spanish, we had the Americans, the Japanese. So this is another blanket statement that I shouldn't make, but like a lot of Filipinos aren't very good at processing the past or talking about difficult subjects. Like it's well, we're known to be loud, but at the same time, we're also a very repressed
mm.
society. So,
That explains my other Filipino friend. That's just like the perfect combination of like his personality,
mhm.
like that. He's
Yeah,
actually
like
quite emotional. I always say it leaks, right? Like he's trying to control it, but it leaks.
yeah. Well, since you mentioned that there's a hauntingness about my work and like my work is about like having the past bear down on you even if you try to
Mm-hmm.
escape it. You know that like well maybe well it's partly cultural because like we have these secrets that we don't talk about but and then end up following us around and I don't know because well I was living in Las Vegas before this. I was living there for 9 months and it's a city that strives to erase the past. Like it's all about looking to the
Does it
future.
have a past?
Yeah,
It's
that's the
so
thing. That's the thing. This
that
Las
that
Vegas because it just blows up its old casinos.
it's so American though,
Yeah,
isn't
it's
it?
it's very American, and I
I
think
mean, I
that
could go there if you could just go. I You won't insult me. Like we think about our history, American history
mhm.
is very short, and we still are not learning it right.
Oh,
Like, oh my!
yeah.
I think for me, listening to some of what happens, it literally something happened in my child's high school, and she called. I'm gonna be honest. She called her rabbi because what they were teaching was so wrong, but the
Mhm.
teacher wasn't believing her. Like they were using words so incorrectly, and it's in books, and
Oh,
it's just
why
everywhere,
do
and
people do
it's
this?
I'm like, I don't understand, but I think from my perspective as an older a woman in past her midpoint in life, right?
Mhm,
Is that there's an idea of fairness in the world and there's a history and there's feelings.
mhm,
And facts have somehow gotten filtered in between all of that, right? Like
mhm,
the emotion of that's horrible or that's terrible or oh my God, that hurts supersedes, well, it did happen.
mhm,
And this is kind of how it happened. And these are the results and the consequences of that. And there can be correction and there can be conversation.
mhm.
But when you erase,
Yeah,
then you lose truth on some level. And I think as writers, we're always trying to go for a truth
yeah, and that's
or
like that happens a lot in the Filipino community and, well, yeah.
Does it?
Philippine
How does it?
history. Like, there's
How?
a
How?
lot of
Tell me.
there's a lot of historical revisionism about the Marcoses. Like, well, I mean, it's a horrible family, and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, like when they were in power, it was like the best time. We had the best time ever, which is not true. That's when like Filipinos started like really leaving the Philippines because he tanked the economy. And I mean, there were like
Right.
human rights abuses, but there, I mean, especially right now with another Marcos in charge, they're like, oh, the people who were like who experienced human rights abuses, they went through that because they were activists, and because of their activism, like they asked for it. Which is like not true. And then I think that a lot of cultures that went through colonialism do this automatically as a means for self-preservation in a way, because you don't want to feel too hurt that somebody would intentionally hurt you or diminish your power. So like how do you cope with that? Like by making excuses for your oppressor. And that's
Hmm.
what is the that's the root of a lot of historical revisionism.
Okay, let's go into your crazy landlady from there
Oh my
because I think
god. Oh.
that is one of my. I think you were so kind in that story in your essay because I know there's more.
Oh.
Like
Oh, like
I'm
yeah, like she asked her neighbor to cut down her tree because like she didn't like looking at the tree. So but anyway, I published an excerpt from that essay in a New Zealand outlet. And like the guy who published it went on to write a review of the book, just like centering on that essay and another essay about the car accident, and then like
yeah.
just a few others. And then he told me that he said in his review that I had a victim like complex, and that that I was whiny in the
Wait, did
landlady
he
essay.
read what I read?
I know it was
No.
nuts.
Whatever.
Yes. Yeah, and then I was like, "What?"
Where do I need to send the email? Tell me now. I'll be like,
Oh,
you
yeah.
are
Oh,
wrong.
and also what because, like, when I tell that story to other people, like, there was another podcaster I was talking to last week who said, "What?" He was like, "You were just telling the story as you were just, like, very straightforward. It wasn't like in fact, like, you weren't telling us that this is a bad person. You were just telling us what happened." And it was like he said I was like,
I think you were too nice because she had no boundaries and that was just so crazy.
well, this is like the consequence of me not thinking before moving to another country. So in my case, like I finished an MFA in Texas, and then people were asking what's next. And then I could have done a PhD in the States, but it was like very coursework heavy. And I kind of like at 26 years old, I wanted to see the world. And I guess I like just gave the globe a spin. I was like, oh, New Zealand. No, well, apart from that, I met in my MFA program a woman who had done her MFA at this creative writing program housed at Victoria University in Wellington. And they also had a PhD program, and she had good things to say about the people who taught there. So I applied, I got in. I didn't like, we didn't know anybody in New Zealand. Like my parents, they thought I was crazy going to New Zealand, but they were like, "Okay, it has a good safety record, and then it looks like Switzerland in pictures, so you'll be safe. We hope." And then so
They
I
filmed Lord of the Rings there. It's fine. It's fine.
yeah, and then like
You might find a hobbit. It's
oh
good.
yeah, I thought it was like this. I knew that no country is perfect, but I didn't think that like I'd get into this landlady situation. So what happened was that like I had a hard time looking for a place to stay, and then it was just like it would have been expensive for me to stay at a hostel before like finding like a more permanent place to stay. So it was like anyway, my program one of the assistants at my program found this posting in the student paper, or was it like the university community like bulletin board. So like I
Yeah.
that's how I found her. And oh my fucking she was
S-
she was like racist. She was like she would so the title of that essay is I do not know how it is in your country, because the full line was like, I do not know how it is in your country, but here we open the windows to let in fresh air. And my jaw dropped because I had lived in Texas for 3 years. Texas is not the most progressive, is not known to be the most progressive place on earth, but I'd never heard something as racist as that throughout my time in Texas. So, and then I thought that, you know how it is, like you want to,
She was treating you like you worked for
oh
her.
yeah, and I she was overcharging me. And like she wouldn't let me use her condiments.
I know,
So
it's all so weird.
yeah, and
So
then when I
weird.
found out that she was overcharging me, whenever she'd leave, like I just pour just condiments into my food, and she like no boundaries. Like it, for me, it was so strange coming from a country that is believed to have no boundaries. The Philippines. I'm Asian, but this is not. This is so horrifyingly. She was so horrifyingly naggy and she'd ask me like, why are you in your room? Because I'm
I live here.
because
I
I
don't know.
live here,
And
I'm paying rent.
everyone, you really her story, Monica's stories about her dad really are quite beautiful, but this story is unhinged and it's a delight in the best possible way. I think we could add a little dash of Japanese horror and then like we can have someone with long black hair walking backwards on their
Oh
toes
yeah,
and
and
her
then
for
we could
tits.
like, oh yeah, my friend in Las Vegas was telling me, why don't you write a Southern Gothic story called, because like I had a bad experience yesterday at line dancing class. So he was
Aw.
like, line dancing with the devil, how like my Kiwi landlady from hell haunted me in Columbus, Georgia.
I love it. I think that, that's a good you never know. You never know where some awesome thing will happen with it.
Yeah, and
Did you take line dancing though? Are you taking line?
I took one class. Like I'm taking salsa dancing, which I enjoy more because there's a
Mhm.
connection and then you're giving yourself up, you're surrendering to somebody else's
Mhm.
need, which I like. With line dancing, the class was was fun. It was just the gym. Like I had this weird exchange with the people at the gym. Like I won't really go into it anymore, but basically
Okay.
I thought that because of the director of this program where I am, the Carson McCullers Center, told me like you can get into the gym for free. I can write you a letter and then you can use the gym for free. And past fellows have been using that letter and then getting into the gym for free. And then today, like yesterday, like they just raised a fuss over it. Like I'd been to the gym several times using that letter, and then all of a sudden they're like, "We're not sure if you can still do this." And but they let me. I will let you in today. So it just left a bad taste in the mouth for me. Like, why did I like go into it? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, line dancing with the devil. Yeah, it's just it just
I like
pissed
that.
me off.
So what else are you working? What kind of stories are you working on while you are here in
Yeah,
Georgia?
yeah. So I recently finished another edit on a novel that I was actually my PhD thesis in New Zealand. It's about the martial law years and also keeping secrets and being haunted by secrets. So there was an agent who was interested in it. I'm not sure if she'll take it on. I hope she does, but like she requested for an R&R, or revise and resubmit.
Okay.
So like I was working on that during the first few weeks, and I thought it was done, and then like I went over it again here, and then I was like, oh yeah, there's a lot of work I can still do on this thing. So thank you, Carson McCullers, for the space and energy.
Yeah, don't rush that. There's no timeline on an
Oh yeah.
R&R.
Oh yeah.
Take your time. And also, by the way, you know that agents are really just testing you how you take notes.
Hmm. All right. So anyway, I can.
As you're doing it, I will have to caveat because I'm sure somewhere in Spaceland is going to be like, "Merp, merp." But really, my experience of 20 something years in
Mhm.
publishing is that a lot of time, and I got 7 for my book, by the way, 7 R&Rs, and a lot of times their response was, "You did exactly what I asked for. Thank you. I don't know how to sell it." Ding, that was their response back. It's like, why'd you make me go do all that work? But there's just seeing if your communication style works, if you understand what they're saying, and they want you to obviously fix something as well, but it's part of the working relationship
Mhm.
dynamic. So
Okay. So anyway,
don't. Yeah.
We will see. I sent her the revised draft like a few days ago while sitting in
Ooh.
Carson McCullers' chair. So it's like I need the energy from like from this lady. So anyway, now that that's done, I am working on another novel about female friendship. So yeah,
Mm.
it's so
Ooh.
fraught.
Tell me about
Oh,
that.
yes. When we returned to the Philippines from the States when I was in 3rd grade, I befriended this girl who like me was a third culture kid, spent much of her time outside the Philippines, and she was half white. So at first we were just kids like hanging out, playing, and then I realized that there was something different about the way people treated her and the way people treated
Cool.
me. So she was, well, white presenting. I guess it's like that short novel, Passing by Nella Larson, with you have this community of like people of color, and then one of them is somebody who's half white, and then like they have so much power, so much more power than you just because of race and the way we think of race. Yeah.
Yeah. I would be really interested to read that. Obviously, I am white, if you can't tell. But, like walking into dynamics or being in spaces where I'm the only white person, I do that quite a lot. And I think in my life experience, I think I've learned when to be quiet, which I think is hard for a lot of people. When it's not about me, I'm here like to like either be supportive or because I like something that's going on here and it's absolutely not about me, but I'm curious about it. So you don't have to take front and center type of
Mhm.
mentality. At least that's like my experience and kind of how I do things. I think if I do take front and center, it's maybe because I get excited and I just want to connect.
Mhm.
But I'm not like meaning to whatever. You talk about that, about like your communities and how you like in your experience when you were in the program in Texas too,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
How you had your community there. So is there ever a time where you're not thinking about that?
Not thinking about.
Like race and identity, and you're just like, I'm just here. Like, I don't know how to really ask that question.
I think that you belong to a group that has been historically oppressed. Like it's automatically part of who you are. And it's not like I'm thinking about it all the time. I mean, this is the beauty of writing about Filipino experiences that are not tethered to the American experience or the American project. Because and this is something that, like, a lot of people observed about my first book, my story collection titled Love and Other Rituals, that when I write about Filipinos, they're not, like, wanting to go to the States or they're not, like, thinking about their identity. They're thinking about themselves as human beings, as we all do, and a lot of my readers found that refreshing that like these people are just living their lives and they're not performing their culture for an outside audience. I think that's my baseline. That even when I'm writing about race or about identity, I am experiencing life on my own terms. I'm not like living this experience for someone else's benefit.
Yeah, totally. I get that. I also wonder in like in general, this is just like me wondering out loud. You might not have an answer. I'm just like so fascinated that, like for me, my grandparents were immigrants, right? Like in and so it wasn't such a far a long time ago thing. Right? Like that their experience and their coming over or whatever. So that influences, I guess, part of my perspective of the world or maybe how I view things. I just find it like fascinating that like I think there's like a whole generation who thinks about that a lot in a very different way than I do, and I don't fully understand it, honestly. Like, I don't, right? And so, like, I'm fascinated by that. I'm like, what part am I missing? What is that? Like, what is that? I don't like that is like, so for me in the storytelling, it's like, oh, you feel separate, but when I read your work, I feel so connected to you, right? And so I guess like my heart is like, oh, how do I make you feel like more comfortable, or like I don't know, like, really, because they're like such raw emotion. I don't have all the right words for it, but that is often what I'm wondering when I hear people younger than me speaking and like being very like identifying with that part. Like, I guess I could like make it simpler. Like, to me there's a million labels identifying people, right? But that doesn't help. It just divides. I like him, like, we need to okay, yes, you that we are have different perspectives and we have different life experience. I guess people aren't as nice as I hope they would be. So, like, instead of just being curious and wanting to know more, right, and meeting you for who you are and what you have to offer, like, that's where I start. Like, that's baseline there. And if you're an asshole, then I'm out. Peace out. But I'm not gonna like wipe out a bajillion people or not recognize, like, because of I had an encounter with, one or two jerks. Like, that sounds like so crazy to me.
How do I put it? Like with centering identity, like I find it like I'm sure that like a lot of people draw power and like affirmation from this, but when like you read a lot of like younger writers bios, like I am like they'll say for instance like I am bisexual, neurodivergent,
Yeah.
and like I want to encounter that in your work and the way you see the world, and you don't have to impose these labels on
Yeah, that's what
yourself
I
like
mean. That is exactly what I
because
mean.
everybody is weird, and like that's what being a human being is. Like it's like you always like I feel that I can't read the room sometimes, that like I like I'm socially awkward, like, and you may have picked this up in my book that I often feel like an outsider. And I think that
Mhm.
it's not unique to my experience as somebody who moves around the world and like just will, and maybe this is like I'm not sure if it's like a fault in my personality that like when I there's something I don't like about a certain place, I'd rather just leave than stick it out.
I think that's just smart.
I hope so. I get a lot of support from my family, so which is a good thing. But like, I mean, I feel like an outsider oftentimes, but like when I write my bio, I won't go out there and say Monica Macansantos writes about like being an outsider.
Right.
Or
And that yeah, we're saying the same thing. I think you're saying it much better, but I
yeah.
think that's my thing. Like, I don't need 1,000 labels to dissect you. I
Oh
wanna,
yeah.
like, meet you and experience you and know your work, and just like, I'm talking to, like, artists and painters and musicians, and all of those things that are inside you will come out,
Oh
right?
yeah.
We will experience that, and I haven't really interviewed one person who hasn't felt like an outsider in some
I think
way.
it's universal to the human experience. All of us feel that
Yeah.
we're misunderstood. I think
Yeah.
that like we all struggle to communicate and connect. And like even when we're in like the best of relationships, there will be struggles. And then
For
like so
sure.
but anyway, like I won't in my bio I won't write like Monica Macansantos is a third culture kid, even if I am. Like I mean that's like I mean it's part of my experience, but it's not front and center.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I agree. Okay, so thank you for
Well, thank
spending
you.
this
Thank you,
hour with me. But
Holly.
I end every interview with the same question, which is, if you came with a warning label, what would it be? We know what labels you wouldn't use, but if you had a warning label, what would it be?
Be nice or else I'll write about you.
The classic writer comeback.
I
I
mean,
have a
with
mug that says that. Don't piss off the
the
writer.
landlady,
She
like,
will.
I mean, with the landlady, like, she just assumed I'd like let that like fly. I mean, I'm petty. Like that's I hold on to past grudges. That's like me. Like I mean, like that's the kind of writer I am. Monica Macansantos is haunted by the past, and she will like she seeks justice.
So, where do you want people to come find you or find your work?
All right. So, my first book, Love and Other Rituals, and my second book, the recently released Returning to My Father's Kitchen, can be purchased wherever good books are sold. You can request it from your local indie bookstore bookstore. You can get it on Bookshop, Barnes
Mm,
and Noble, Amazon, and your local public library. Like they might have it, and if they don't, you can ask them to order a copy
they'll
for
order
you.
it.
Yeah, thank you. And
Yeah.
also, Northwestern University Press, which is the publisher of my second book, sells copies. So it's like a very reliable supplier of my book. So
Hey, and if you have questions for Monica or you have wanting to know more about anything we talked about, leave a comment, please, below, and we will respond. So thank you so much for being a guest on the Holly Hughes podcast. We will see everyone again soon. I hope you're inspired.